The conversation transitioned to the topics of bringing together their two religious traditions, the great challenge of religious conflict, and the need for tolerance. The Dalai Lama began by saying it's not possible for everyone to be a Christian or a Buddhist. There's no other choice but for followers of the world's religions to accept the reality of other faiths. We have to live together. In order to live happily, we must respect each other's traditions. I really admire other traditions. Kofi Annan, when he was in his last year, set up a commission, the Archbishop added. They called it the High-Level Panel, a rather pompous title. We were from all traditions, and despite our diversity, we produced a unanimous report. We concluded, there is nothing wrong with faiths. The problem is the faithful. That's true, the Dalai Lama agreed. I asked what we must do about intolerance and fanaticism, which was flaring all around the world. Education and wider contact are really the only solutions, the Dalai Lama replied. I have gone to make pilgrimages to holy sites all over the world, such as Fatima in Portugal, the Wailing Wall and Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. One time I was in Barcelona, Spain, and I met a Christian monk who had spent 5 years in the mountains living as a hermit, with very few hot meals. I asked him what his practice was, and he said the practice of love. When he answered, there was something very special in his eyes. This is really the practice at the core of all the world's religions, love. I didn't think to myself when I met this holy man, unfortunately he's not a Buddhist, or it's too bad he's not a Christian. Or it's too bad he is a Christian. I often say to people, do you really think that? The Archbishop began. But the Dalai Lama had turned to one of the monks who was serving food. The Archbishop pretended to scold him. Are you listening? The Dalai Lama, who had missed the Archbishop's comment, launched in with, so that shows, really. The Archbishop continued to pretend that he was offended. You see, he's not listening. Unless you use the stick, I will not listen, the Dalai Lama said, laughing. But I thought you were nonviolent. Now, please, you speak more. I should concentrate on eating. This is my last meal of the day. In the Buddhist monastic tradition, the Dalai Lama eats only 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. Okay, as I was saying, do you really think that when, I didn't say if, I said when, the Dalai Lama arrives in heaven, that God will say, oh, Dalai Lama, you've been so wonderful. What a pity you are not a Christian. You'll have to go to the warmer place. Everybody sees just how entirely ridiculous it is. The Archbishop paused and then, in a very intimate moment of friendship, said, I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was meeting you. The Dalai Lama smiled and then started to tell another story. I thought you were going to try to eat, the Archbishop said. The Dalai Lama chortled and went back to his dessert. Yes, but you have been a wonderful influence in the world, the Archbishop continued. There are many, many people that you have helped to become good people, and people of different religions, people of different faiths. They can see, they can sense, because I don't think it is what you say, although yes, what you say is okay, sort of acceptable. Scientists also think you are clever, but it is really who you are. I think everywhere in this world you go, people are aware that you are authentic. You're not putting it on. You live what you teach, and you have helped very, very many people recover a belief in their faiths, a belief also in goodness. You are popular not just with old people, but also with young people. I've said that you and Nelson Mandela are the only people that I can think of who are not pop stars and who could fill Central Park as you do. I mean, when people know that you are going to come and speak, they come in droves. So the thing we say about our world being a secular world and all of that is only partly true. The Dalai Lama waved his hands, dismissing his rank or specialness. I always consider myself personally one of the 7 billion human beings. Nothing special. So, on that level, I have tried to make people aware that the ultimate source of happiness is simply a healthy body and a warm heart. As he spoke, I wondered why this is so difficult for us to believe and to act on. It should be obvious that we are the same, but often we feel separate. There is so much isolation and alienation. Certainly, I had grown up feeling this way in New York City, which at the time was the most populated place in the world. Everybody wants a happy life, and our individual happy life depends on a happy humanity. So we have to think about humanity, discover a sense of oneness with all 7 billion human beings. Tea or coffee? The Dalai Lama said, once again returning from the spiritual teacher to the host. I've got juice, thank you, the Archbishop replied. You were raised with a very special status in Tibet. You must have come to this recognition of oneness over time. Yes, I have grown in my wisdom from study and experience. When I first went to Peking, now Beijing, to meet Chinese leaders, and also in 1956 when I came to India and met some Indian leaders, there was too much formality. So I felt nervous. So now, when I meet people, I do it on a human-to-human level. No need for formality. I really hate formality. When we are born, there is no formality. When we die, there is no formality. When we enter hospital, there is no formality. So formality is just artificial. It just creates additional barriers. So irrespective of our beliefs, we are all the same human beings. We all want a happy life. I couldn't help wondering if the Dalai Lama's dislike of formality had to do with having spent his childhood in a gilded cage. Was it only when you went into exile, I asked, that the formality ended? Yes, that's right. So sometimes I say, since I became a refugee, I have been liberated from the prison of formality. So I became much closer to reality. That's much better. I often tease my Japanese friends that there is too much formality in their cultural etiquette. Sometimes, when we discuss something, they always respond like this. The Dalai Lama vigorously nodded his head. So whether they agree or disagree, I cannot tell. The worst thing is the formal lunches. I always tease them that the meal looks like a decoration, not like food. Everything is very beautiful, but very small portions. I don't care about formality, so I ask them, more rice, more rice. Too much formality, then you are left with a very little portion, which is maybe good for a bird. He was scooping up the last bits of dessert.